Greetings, flesh creatures. It is I, Megatron. On behalf of TFYLP, I want to congratulate you for listening to the most refined collected podcast on this miserable little planet Earth. Yes. Here you'll find knowledgeable fans discussing every aspect of Transformers and beyond. Now, enjoy I continue my path to complete conquest of all of you miserable biological entities. Predacons, terrorize!
Hi, and welcome to TFYLP, episode 347, recorded on September 22nd. So with me today, I have Robert over here.
Hi, everybody.
I've got Jack.
Hola! I'm not
And
sure
I've
what the
got-
Spanish word is for everybody, but hola.
And then Peter.
Forever Dustrum.
Hey, Peter. Welcome back. It's been a little while, so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And it's right after your birthday, too. And we actually, we have someone else who's their birthday today, so is that right, Jack?
Yes, it is.
Happy birthday, Jack.
Thank you.
So I like how Jack is spending it's your 21st birthday, is that right?
That is right. Yep.
So I like how you're spending your 21st birthday on a Transfomers podcast rather than, whatever you may be doing on your 21st birthday.
It beats working right now, so.
That's true.
See, the Transformers fandom is encouraging productive habits and sobriety. And that's important.
See?
Let's not talk about what goes on at conventions, okay?
Yeah.
Let's skip over that.
Yep.
I don't know what
On
you're
my
talking
21st
about.
birthday, I was driving around in a hurricane in Tampa buying RID toys.
My 21st, I was in college, and I went to buy alcohol legally, and I was like, man, I can't wait till I get carded. And I'll be like, bam! And they didn't card me. I mean, I have a baby face anyways, especially 21-year-old Rob was super baby face. And nothing. I was disappointed.
So, yeah, I don't think I actually remember my 21st birthday, so it was a pretty good time, though, I think.
Hey, Antoine in the chat.
Hey.
Antoine.
So the topic of today's episode is, we've all been having this kind of MP44 masterpiece debate for, God, it seems like it's been like 3 months now. And
it was longer than that. I feel like it's been like 9 months since the figure was announced.
Yeah, since
pretty
the
much
pre-order started.
Well, and even before that, I mean, we could see the direction of the masterpiece line has changed, so it's morphed. I think it, kind of started with really, I would say Inferno, I think, right? Wouldn't you say? Or maybe
I would say
even
Shockwave.
Yeah. So it's been
Shockwave.
kind of going this different way.
I think they've gotten better at what they were doing, but I think it started with Shockwave, because Shockwave didn't have any paint. And who else came out with Shockwave? Hot Rod?
Hot Rod,
Who also didn't
Yeah.
really have a lot of paint. But then after that, we got Inferno. And that's, people are like, look at the legs, they're flat panels. And I was like, and other people are like, terrible. But Inferno came loaded with paint.
Yeah.
so
And,
much so that you got it all over your hands and all over the table.
I didn't have chipping issues with him. I guess
did.
knock on wood.
My Inferno wasn't as bad, but my Grapple was. So
Grapple
and it
was
wasn't
worse, yeah.
it wasn't something to where like it was horrible, but it's still, there was a lot of paint like kind of coming off. So
Maybe, I don't know if I got lucky or I'm just unobservant then. Because I've played with both of those figures quite a bit. I think they're awesome. I really love the engineering in them. But, yeah, maybe I got flakes all over and I just don't even notice it.
yeah, and honestly, one of the concerns I have just in general about masterpieces is like, why can Takara not apply their paint correctly? Like it seems like this is going all the way back to the very beginning of the line with Sideswipe, where the initial Sideswipe had a lot of paint issues. But I feel like in general with Takara that the figures now like have a ton of paint on it. They look absolutely beautiful, and if you take it straight out of the box and put it straight on your shelf, that it will be amazing. But then if you want to transform it, there's paint that rubs off, chips off. Like, and I know that chrome was an issue too, where there's chrome rub on some of the figures and whatnot on the Vans and on Hot Rod. And so I don't understand it, because I feel like that like a lot of the third parties, like Fans Toys or Make Toys or MMC, like none of them seem to have the same problems with paint that I do with these masterpiece figures. And I don't know. I mean, do you guys agree?
Fans Toys has had some issues in the past. Their Hot Rod has an issue.
Comes out of the box.
Yeah, right out of the box.
Yeah.
All the hood stuff is just goofy. I got really lucky, but a lot of people didn't.
The Hot Rod, everyone's that I know, I'm pretty sure it's everyone. The front of the hood where it tucks into the waist, that comes pre-chipped for you. And it's pretty noticeable in car mode, especially. Other people might have other issues that I think are case dependent, but I think that one is everybody's. Is right there. It's just wasn't made properly.
Well, yeah, for that one. It's an engineering thing. The lip of the hood, it's metal and it butts up right against a metal structural piece on the interior of the waist, and as you fold it in, it goes. Mine didn't come chipped. I was super lucky, and then I put a little piece of clear rubbery stuff so that it doesn't. And I guess later runs of that toy have had something like that pre-installed to prevent chipping, but there are still issues. Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe somebody can give me some examples, but I don't feel that not having paint chipping, I don't think that's a solved problem. I don't think anybody has solved that. I think if you have stuff that is painted and it rubs up against something, you're going to run that risk. And
Yeah.
If you have a simple toy, it's less likely because there's less going on. But I mean, if it's especially, modern masterpiece and, especially you talk about like Fans Toys, who has the worst engineering in the industry, like it's complex, you're going to chip them.
Yeah.
I think Fans Toys might seem like it doesn't chip as much because who the hell's going to transform that a second time? I do sometimes as a masochist to put myself through it, Peter. But like the Takara stuff, I usually love the engineering so much that I'm eager to transform it again. I have to block off some time, or know that I'm going to be, watching TV that I don't necessarily need to be fully engaged in, so I can kind of do both. But I haven't ran into anything that it's like, oh well, they never chip. That doesn't feel correct.
Yeah, I haven't had any of my stuff up here chipped. The only thing I think I've had chipped on this shelf was my Classics Prime. He's like right here. He's got the Pans Project Protector armor on. Haven't touched him. Next thing you know, the windshield or the door panel that's on his arms, that started chipping, and I never even touched him. Everything else up here is fine, but Classics Prime.
And if you look at what he has up there, he's got, like Masterpiece Star Saber doesn't have a lot of paint. They had the aesthetic, but that was before they were just loading them with paint. And Hot Rod, who doesn't have a lot of paint. The early Seekers, it looks like Make Toys Megatron, maybe?
Apollyon.
Or it's Apollyon. I don't remember any of those having a lot of paint either. Like they all are nice looking figures, but they don't have paint. You know what I mean? They have accent paint. They don't have the entire arm paint,
Yeah.
Well,
not a single one, so.
And that's the thing is I feel like, especially like Make Toys, I think does a pretty good job of this, of, doing really good accent paint, but not coating the whole figure in paint. And so then you're not having to worry about, all that paint chipping. Cause like you said, the more paint you have on there, the more likely it's going to, chip, run, that there's going to be paint blemishes and things like that. And so I don't know. I mean, I think there's probably a good segment of the fandom that is not really worried about that. They're like, oh, who cares? If I get a couple chips here and there, it's battle damage. it's whatever. I don't really mind.
Damage.
I don't call it battle damage, but I don't need to go to that level. But I'm just like, oh well, I enjoy the figure, and that's what's important. And then, like, would I rather not have the chip? Yeah, obviously, but I just painted plastic looks so much nicer than unpainted plastic. There's some people I've found that if they can have a certain finish to the plastic or the way the plastic is made, sometimes it can look so nice that it doesn't need it. But typically, like, kind of just, plain plastic, just out of the machine just doesn't really look that good as opposed to paint on it.
Yeah. No, I agree. But it is frustrating when, again, that there's chipping or scratching straight out of the box. Like who was it? Gosh, I can't remember. I've had a couple figures where there's just been paint issues straight out of the box. So
From Takara?
yeah. I'm blanking on which one it was. But I know that there's a couple figures where I had like paint scratches and paint chips, straight out of the box with Takara figures. So, and the thing that's a little frustrating too is like I usually get my figures from like Amazon Japan, or I get my figures from just one of those types of retailers because it's usually a lot cheaper. But I feel like I'm not going to send a figure back to them just because there's a paint scratch. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So,
I mean, not to mention they usually have sold out on Amazon Japan. So it's like, are you going to send it back to have to pay then that like $50 to $100 more to rebuy it from Big Bad or something?
right.
Like how much do you care? What I've kind of gotten more interested in is trying to find small ways to touch them up. If it bothers me that bad, like I got some like, color Sharpies, just for like small things, or even break out a small bit of paint. Like even if it's not the exact tone, if it's a small chip, it'll be enough to, cover it up so you don't see it when you're just glancing at your shelf, just depending on what you have going on. I think it's kind of the price of doing business.
Yeah. So my question just in general, like with this shift to the cartoon aesthetic, which do you guys prefer more? Do you prefer, the older aesthetic, that they had previously with all the older Masterpiece cars and MP10 and all that type of thing, to where it was kind of a, mashup of the cartoon and the toy and all that? Or do you prefer what they're doing now, where they're really splitting it out and saying, here's your toy version, here's your toon version, and the two don't necessarily mix? Like, which would you rather have in your collection?
Why don't you go for it, Peter? You've been quiet.
Okay. Excuse me. Yeah, I prefer the toyetic aesthetic. Toyetic aesthetic. Yeah, I like it when it looks more like the toy, all the little greebly details and all that fun stuff. There's merit to some characters looking more like the toy, especially if they were more like the cartoon, especially if they were like a cartoon only character. But that's rare that we're gonna get a masterpiece of a cartoon only character. The only one that comes to mind, aside from Autobot Spike, is those Gladiator dudes from the Key to Vector Sigma Part 1 and 2. But anyway, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I prefer the toyetic aesthetic, and I know that there's a market for the cartoon look, and to each their own. I'm going to buy everything anyway. I just might not open everything.
So is that your test of whether or not a toy is loved? The ones you loved, you open, and then the unopened ones are sitting over in the pile, like moping together?
Well, they're beautifully sorted and put up on wonderful warehouse racks that I've spent more on than I have on the actual toys, and they're put in a storage unit that I spend more on than I pay for my mortgage every month. So, yeah, I like toys.
Even the ones you don't like, you like?
Even the ones I don't like, I like.
I think it's no shock to anyone that I'm all about the cartoon aesthetic. For me, it's we've gotten so many versions of these characters throughout the years. I mean, like how many Optimus Primes? I mean, that's obviously the big obvious one. When we've never gotten an Optimus Prime that looked like it walked off the screen. You know, we've had the mixes. I mean, we've got a gajillion in Chug, and you know, in every line except, you know, like Beast Wars or whatever, you know, has a truck Optimus Prime. You know, we get a lot of it. So having that definitive walked off the screen, I think it gives Masterpiece a clear direction that until they did that, it didn't have a clear direction. It was, you know, we're going to make cool toys. They're going to be aimed at collectors. But the aesthetic could be just whatever the designer felt. And I find this with a lot of creative stuff, at least like on the technical side, like as a developer. And I think, I know game makers sometimes talk about this, indie game makers, that constraint is wonderful. Constraint makes people get creative. Constraint, you know, makes you do things that otherwise you wouldn't do. So if you don't have like a look you're going for your figure that you're engineering, you know, if you're like, oh man, I can't get the arm to fit into here like the way I want, well, you can just make the arm smaller. What does it matter? You know, like, I'm just making something up to give an example here, but if you're like, oh, it has to look like this, then you have to solve it with the engineering, and you have to get creative. And, you know, like Masterpiece 44 here does things that we hadn't seen before, you know, and if they hadn't have been constrained to, you know, he needs to have this silhouette, he needs to look like this, his legs have to have, you know, this shape, you know, and his feet got to look like this, and like, and he also has to have the articulation. You know, he needs to have action figure level articulation, because we've never had, you know, a toy that can do that with their leg. You know, that's very much a first. You know, to get that high up into the chest. You know, they said we have to do these things so it constrains us while looking a certain way, so they can't just, you know, fudge the look to get the other parts of it. And it's, I just think we've gotten amazing engineering. I don't think Inferno's collapsing ladder would have happened without that constraint. You know, that it needs to look like the show, which is still, you know, one of my favorite things that we've seen on, you know, the past 10 years or whenever it came out. So yeah, I love what it's made them do for the engineering. I love having that definitive look that we just don't get anywhere else. And with, at least with the third party world out there, people have options as well, which is nice. That way we can all still enjoy the hobby together. You know, so people that, you know, they don't like the price, and I know we'll talk more about price later, but, you know, there's even options there at the third party level, you know, that gives people options. Then plus, you know, you got your mainline stuff, which is a lot cheaper and has, you know, looks are all over the place. You know, they're doing interesting things with them that people enjoy and people like. And then these though, they've been doing, like you said, you know, the repaints of the toy looks. You know, the metal looks and whatnot. I think, and they bring some of that detail back. They're not going to bring back the molded detail though, that I know some people miss. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have conflicting feelings about this, because I mean, I agree with you. Like, that Inferno toy is just absolutely amazing, and it has that masterpiece moment. I guess Maz, I think, was the one that coined that, where, you know, it seems like that every masterpiece has kind of like some new bit of information or engineering where, like, you're like, oh my God, like, how did they do this? You know, like, I've never seen this before, kind of thing.
Level up.
Yeah, they level up.
Or like even simple stuff like Trax's hands. How many people were blown away by Trax's hands when first time you did that? Like, that was so cool. It wasn't the normal open the tab, fold in the fist, fold up the tab, or, you know, maybe just pop in and out. It was a thing, and it was awesome.
I need to look at this again. I forgot.
And I feel like, you know, some of the figures like are just incredibly fun. Like, I think the older Bumblebee or like Ultra Magnus, as far as the transformation goes, is like one of my favorite figures. It annoys me that it doesn't have the level of articulation that, you know, a lot of the other newer figures have, but it's a really fun toy.
Ultra Magnus is great. I wish he was loaded with paint like the current line, but other than that, he's and the butt flap, I think they kind of
and maybe if it had a waist swivel, maybe, I don't know. Just throw that one in there. It doesn't, like that, and Shockwave.
Take your word.
Shockwave and because I was actually comparing the articulation of the new Siege line to Masterpiece, and I was like, hey, like the Shockwave and the Ultra Magnus both like have waist swivel on the new Siege figures, but they don't on the Masterpiece, which is, you know, kind of crazy. But kind of
No, those were early on in the shift too, and
Yeah.
you know, I think it shows. Like, it's again, they didn't have the paint on it, and they
Yep.
didn't quite go all the way. But like Shockwave had the all-in-one gun bit, which again was brilliant. But then they left the feet for gun mode, like they just quit. They didn't finish wrapping up what the feet should do for Shockwave. You know, and again, there's not a lot of paint on him, so it feels like they were still they were almost to where they wanted to go, but they hadn't figured it
Testing
all
the
yet.
waters.
Yeah. I figured once I got to Megatron, well, I mean, really Inferno, I guess by the time I got to Inferno, they had the paint and the engineering down. And then it was either Megatron or Sunstreaker when the price started going up. I remember
I think
Sunstreaker
that's
was
right.
like 120, and people were like, why is this 120 when the previous cars were 60? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, that was like 6 years ago, and Sunstreaker is actually painted top to bottom. You know, and then they just kind of kept upping that bar. And then Masterpiece G1 Masterpiece went silent for, not silent, like we had some announcements, but we had over a year with no releases.
Yeah.
Maybe a year and a half with no new molds while they were working on the new line, you know, or almost a relaunch of it almost.
And so I was gonna say that, like, Sunstreaker is still probably my favorite car. However, it still has, I mean, it has like a big backpack. It has a bunch of other parts that it's like, if you look at it, you know, from the side or whatever, it, you know, there's like a bunch of stuff going on. I think they actually did a really good job with Optimus Prime this time. Like, I mean, yeah, like he has a big backpack, but it's like whatever. Like, it's all at least integrated, and it has that cool sound chip, you know, in it. But like the Bumblebee that's coming out, like they fixed a lot of stuff. It seems like from the old Bumblebee, but at the same time, it's like it almost introduced its own level of issues. You know,
Yeah, that Bumblebee's a tough one for me because,
Yeah.
like, head on, I love it. I just absolutely love it. It's like, I mean, you know, he's the kid character. He's the yellow kid character, you know, that, you know, was Cheater in Beast Wars, and that yellow kid character has been a staple throughout the franchise through every year, through every, you know, aspect. But good Lord, those feet and that backpack is really bad. I think the only saving grace is that he's actually going to be quite a small figure. So it's not like going to be this huge backpack. It's just proportionally, when we're looking at a big thing, it's going to really be that bad. He's going to look great on the shelf. I'm still interested to get it in hand, see if he's at least fun. But man, like with Prime here, I don't feel they could have done anything really that much better with this, with the sound chip. They would have to ditch the electronics, and I love having Cullen's voice.
Prime had a big backpack. If you looked at him, you know, from the side in the cartoon, so that shakes out.
Yeah. I mean, it's maybe a little larger than it should be, but it's not that far off, you know.
Right.
But
well, and
I feel Bumblebee, they could have tightened that up a bit. I know they could have.
Yeah,
they're talented enough.
Bumblebee's a mess.
The thing is like a lot of these figures too, like I feel like they don't photograph as well, or at least like Takara doesn't photograph them as well. Like, I think that a lot of times, like, if you actually get it on our hands and you can have, you know, guys like Maz or 6-0 or Duran or whoever, the thousands of other guys that do Transformers pictures and actually, like, accentuate, you know, the good parts of the figure rather than the bad ones. And they actually probably transform them correctly, whereas that's not always 100% with Hasbro and Takara. Too, but I feel like there's something about, like, again, that Inferno is a good example of a figure that if I were based on pictures of like which one I was going to pick, like I would probably definitely go with the Mastermind Creations one. Like, I just think that it looks better in pictures, just because the Inferno, the Masterpiece one, just looks so plain. But I feel like when you actually get it in hand and you look at all that paint that's on there and all that, like, I think that it looks so much more premium, and on top of that, you have a figure that just is kind of a marvel of engineering, you know, that they did for Inferno too. So
But that opens up a fun for my collection anyway. Mentioning the MMC fire truck mold, that opens up a fun avenue of display. I like to use different molds, for different for like repaint types. I have Gen 1 Inferno on my shelf or whatever. I've got the Takara one for Inferno. I've got the Takara one for Grapple, and then I've got the MMC one for Artfire. That way you can show the disparity, even though they are the same mold. I'm using my air quotes here. I can show, at least on my masterpiece shelf, that in '87 we had this like other version. So it gives me a chance to play with the different molds. I played with Make Toys Wrestle. I thought about having him as my grapple for a little bit, but yeah, I backed out of that. But yeah, little too squat, little too.
Well, I think that it was the first effort, and so
Yeah.
it's like you can definitely see, like, with a lot of these toys, it's like, okay, like, for example, the Starscream, the Masterpiece Starscream, right? Like the Make Toys one, like, blows it away, but it's like, how many years have we had to where they could actually kind of take some of the flaws of that initial figure and then put it, into the new one? And so, like, the same thing is like the Make Toys or that mold or whatever. Like, it was great for first effort, but then it's like, once you compare the other ones where it's not hollow in the back, and like they kind of took it, a little bit extra for both the MMC and the Takara one. So
Yep. So I do the same as Peter, although space reasons I may even have to stop doing that. But that's been like, just like you have the MMC's Artfire, which kind of gave me variety in my toys, but my cartoon shelf looks like the cartoon, which I love. Well, I lost my train of thought.
Don't you love when that happens?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some other ones like the MMC's Trailbreaker. I got that with the rally mold.
Yep.
So that was, I was able to see it. While I like X Transbots for the cartoon look. Maybe one day Takara will get around to it. I guess we'll wait and see.
They will.
But it makes a fun shelf of just kind of masterpiece level engineering and design, but it's a very eclectic shelf, which is great.
It adds some diversity and visual diversity. It adds some fun.
Yeah. And I think a Secret 3.0 is just around the corner. I think everybody should just.
I am 100% certain that they're gonna do another Seeker. So
the question is it going to be good enough to get rid of the Make Toys ones?
That's going to be tough.
Well, it depends. Did you get the wing fillers for your Make Toys?
That never bothered me. I thought that was. I mean, on the one hand, I get it, but on the other hand, it's like, who cares? I mean, I know people care, but you know what I mean. It's not a deal breaker for me. But the Make Toys ones, while the engineering is pretty good, there's obviously some few little QC issues with them,
Yeah.
But there's no paint on them. They are not painted head to toe. So
I think
I'm very curious.
The chest is painted, like the red part, and then the cockpit. I think, but those are both painted. But I think that makes it look really nice. But again, for me, I kind of prefer that, where they paint the accents but not the whole figure. Again, I'm an MMC fan, and I really like what they do with their reformatted line, just because they're playable figures. Like, you don't have to worry about all this paint or these paint issues. They still make it look nice, but
and MMC's too is like the last company doing anything Chug style in the third party world, pretty much.
Planet X is the other one.
What's that?
Planet X is
Planet X.
One,
oh, that's right. They're still doing some War for Cybertron
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Fans Project would be, but Fans Project is, I guess, dead.
Yeah,
they're hibernating.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The interesting thing, with those, and I mean, this is a topic for another day, but I think a lot of the reason is just because it's not that that Chug aesthetic and whatever it doesn't sell as well. And so I think that, like, if you have something that's accurate to the cartoon or to some type of source media, like, that sells much better than if you come up with your own design. So I think that that's probably, again, like what Takara is seeing is that, hey, it sells better if it looks like exactly like the cartoon. But the one thing I do want to go back to that, what you're talking about, Rob, within where they have to make up with engineering. is it actually kind of frustrates me a little bit that they put so much engineering in there just to look so that it's like perfect to the cartoon, because I feel like it makes the figure somewhat unfinished, because you end up with all these backpack flaps and all this kind of junk, right? And two, it makes the figure a lot more complex and just not as much fun to transform. So I do think in some cases it like works out really well. Like like we were talking about Inferno, and then other times it doesn't, just with the Bumblebee, or just other figures. And for me, like I personally, like I love really fun transformations. I love artistic design, and so like it just annoys me for them to put all, for something to be much more expensive, much more complex, like, so, not necessarily fun, um, just so that they can pull it off, so they can be just a tiny bit more accurate to the source material.
The fun factor, I think, is subjective. I know that there's an advantage definitely and merit to having an intuitive transformation where you're just flipping through. Yeah, this is great. This works. Boom, 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 boom. You're done. But I also derive a great deal of pleasure from that figure that I have to completely explode and then get it back
I felt
together.
a sun surge.
Yeah. So you're a Bad Cube fan.
I am a Bad Cube fan.
I really like Bad Cube's later releases. They really hit their stride with like Gears and
Gears is great.
Yeah, I mean he's not perfect. Like getting the chest bit to plug in car mode or whatever it is. You have to
plug like 15 things in at once.
Yeah,
and that's frustrating.
The thing is, like, even if you don't get them plugged in, it's fine in truck mode, and so that's kind of like the saving grace. But those were fun, and I really know and like their pipes and Huffer were good. I thought the new versions, but their Sideswipe and Red Alert weren't as popular with people. I loved how they looked. The transformation was kind of
the narrow chest was so much.
That's what I loved.
Improvement. Yeah,
that's what I've been waiting for.
One thing about going back to the Bumblebee real quick, when you compare them to things like Bad Cube, have you seen the photos of the comparison in hand of the old Bumblebee versus the new Bumblebee?
Mm-hmm.
The new Bumblebee it's a head taller than the old Bumblebee, which means that for all of those, myself included, who were buying like the Bad Cube and the X-Transbots boost and gears and
oh my god, you're right.
Yeah, now your Bumblebee's going to be taller than all the other mini bots.
Wait, you're saying the new one is taller?
The new one is taller.
Oh, the new,
MP45 is taller than the old MP21. So your Bumblebee is going to be taller than your Gears, taller than your Huffer, taller than your everyone. All your other mini bots are going to be shorter than Bumblebee, who's supposed to be, as far as the art crew is concerned, the smallest of the Autobots.
All right, I got the solution.
We're doing.
Put Bumblebee down there on the next shelf down.
There you go.
Problem solved. You won't be able to tell shelf to shelf.
Yeah.
Oh, he looks about the same. Okay.
I think too is like, one, like how much does scale bug you, and two, like how complete does your collection need to be? Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it really would only bother you if you like had to have a complete collection of Transformers that perfectly scaled together, right?
All right. What does scale matter when it's in a box that's in a tote on a shelf in a warehouse?
Okay, I'll take it a different direction. I appreciate what you're saying, Rob, but I'll take it a different direction. What does scale matter when you're trying to go for cartoon accuracy?
That's what
because there's no such thing.
There absolutely isn't. It doesn't. I'm not that hard on scale. It has to be close-ish, and it is very much in the mind's eye. A lot of people talk about that. To them, I mean, it's one that I had when MP10 was kind of the second birth of the Masterpiece line. That's when they kind of, started actually, hey, we're not just going to make this random release. We're actually going to make a line and keep producing for it. And I'm turning around just to look at my shelf as I think about it. But even when those first came out, I felt the cars were too small. And I've gotten used to it now because it's been a decade or more. But like I always felt that the cars weren't that much smaller than Prime. And I mean, you go back, you look at the scale chart, you see it in plenty of examples. Yeah. It's like, okay, I was wrong. But my mind's eye, they weren't that much shorter than Prime. But they were.
Also in the cartoon, like you could pick out multiple scenes where they were about the same size as
Yeah.
Prime, and then you could pick out several other scenes where they
Yeah.
were tiny. Like, I mean,
Yep.
like scale is all over the place,
Yeah.
you know, with the
So
cartridge.
There's a
they have to be
great
like
shot in. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. You go.
Oh, I was gonna say there's a great shot in I think it's SOS Dinobots where they're walking into the cavern that they open up in the wall or whatever when they go and find the dinosaur bones, and you can tell that the Toei animators looked at the scale chart and then drew it, boop, because they have Prime, I think it's Ratchet, Sideswipe, and Bumblebee all in the same shot, and they are all perfect to the scale chart. Sideswipe comes right up to Prime's waist. Ratchet's Ratchet or Ironhead, whichever the Vans was in the shot, is a little bit taller. Bumblebee's way shorter than Sideswipe, and then Spike's kind of puttering around or whatever. It's like scale chart on the screen, and it's one of the only times where they had so many people of different heights in the same shot, in the same aspect of just going across the
You
frame.
can just perfectly see it.
Yeah.
So it's for me, scale has to be like in the 80% range. And so Bumblebee being a head taller than that Bumblebee, I don't know. I mean, it might stick out a little bit, but that's why I think I'll probably need to move him. He's going to look really weird next to everybody.
Have him sit up on Skyfire's shoulder or something, just like waving. Hey!
Yeah.
The thing that amazes me though about that engineering of that new Bumblebee is the fact that he's taller than the old one, but his car mode is actually much smaller. And
Yep.
so like that's the thing that kind of blows my mind about the figure, and I don't know. I don't think I'm going to get it, but I really want to check it out. Like I wish hopefully I can check some of the stuff out at TFCon, just because I don't know. I don't really want to spend the money on new versions of it, but at the same time,
What?
like,
I mean, you're out
think
of
it's
Masterpiece Toys. Why would you buy it?
right. But then I keep like all the new stuff. It's like, oh,
You just want to play with it. You
I
want to
just
check it
wanna
out
play
for a
with
week
it.
or two.
Right, exactly. I just want to play with it. So yeah. So if anyone wants to bring their Masterpiece stuff for me to like break at TFCon, then
Well, technically, he
Go
won't be
ahead.
out at TFCon.
Such an enticing offer.
And actually going back to the chat, I know some people were talking about the knees for Masterpiece Optimus Prime MP44. I know that seems like that's been a common issue where people with breakages, like when they're bending it. Have you had any problems, Rob?
No, I mean, now there are problems, so that's not to be dismissive of the people that had it. And I mean, mine just happens to work fine. There's a notch on the back of his knee that goes into a slot in here, and that's to activate the second part of the knee joint to get that deep bend instead of just a 90-degree bend. And for some people, it doesn't line up properly, and then it breaks something in the knee. People have already posted, plenty of ways that if you broke it, here's how you fix it. And if yours, you notice it's not going in, but it just hasn't broken yet, here's also how you fix that.
And you didn't have to do any of that?
No, I didn't do anything.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's one of those, the problem is there, but it's not widespread. It's the internet. The guy that, you make 10,000 of these, the 4 people that had breakages are going to make it's like 100% it's garbage, especially with a figure like this that was so heated to begin with.
Yeah, the price does add some weight to their complaints.
Yeah. But, it's, as I've branched out into a few other expensive robo collectibles, I don't feel the price complaints are justified at all. I mean, now maybe when you get them from Big Bad, especially, it feels worse. But that's just, educate yourselves. That's why everybody mentions this Amazon Japan 5,000 times a day now, trying to help people out. I've gotten several Sola Chogokin figures. My God Mars reissue broke, and it's widespread. And I'm waiting weeks hoping that they send me replacement parts. And I'm getting no communication on what it is. I mean, that was like $300, $350. And that's straight up broke, unusable. Not like, oh, the knee broke, I can take it apart and fix it. Like, no, that's jacked. It's dead.
That's one
Gunbuster
thing
has issues. It happens. And at $325, $350 for MP44, totally justified, because it's right up there with the amount of stuff they threw in, and the engineering is still way beyond anything in Sola Chogokin.
I'm not personally venting at the price. I just know that we've talked about it on this show. There has been heat on this price, and the value of said price, or the perception of the value. I don't know.
It's. I mean, I don't think you can talk. Like if this was a $200 figure, people would have loved it. There would have not been anywhere near the amount of gnashing of teeth. You know, you can't talk about it without price.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, and I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is that the old MP10, and then again this whole third party versus Takara thing. I'd be really curious to see like if Hasbro was technically the one coming out with this figure, whether or not they would have actually went after the third parties for releasing those other Optimus Primes like they did with the Unicron, because like I feel like just having those other two new Masterpiece Primes out there like kind of takes away from MP44, because again, like, yeah, it seems like overall that MP44 is probably the best option, right? But
it is
the fact that you can buy like both of those third party figures, right, and an MP10, you can have all three, or you could have two other figures, whatever, for the price of one MP44. Like, I mean, you kind of have to ask yourself, like, yeah, it's better, but like, is it that much better? And do I have to have, like, am I the collector that has to have the absolute best or whatever? And that's a personal question. Some people it is, some people they're not. So
I have a theory on this, and this goes over to Hasbro's latest activity with Chug and pre-ordering with that, and just the price increases in general on everything. I really and if you couple that with the rumored cease and desist that they gave Zeta for their Core Star figure, I think Hasbro is raising the prices like across the board, and then they're going to start slapping C&Ds on all these other companies, saying, like, we're going to price you up so we are the only game in town. We're going to have so many pre-orders that you can't afford third-party stuff, and then we're going to put these other guys to bed so that we are. I don't know. It's a conspiracy theory. It's mine, but I really think Hasbro is doing their best to make sure that their products measure up, that the value is there, and then they're going to start laying the smackdown on all these other upstarts that are taking their money.
I think where Hasbro is going to really start flexing is that they know they can't win in a court of law against third-party guys that are making a run of, 2,000 figures or whatever it is, and it's not worth the money. Rick's talked about that they evaluated it. They know the address of where the third-party stuff is made. They're not ignorant of it, but it was just, and they hate it, but the money wasn't there. It didn't financially make sense to go after them. But I think now that they have Power Rangers and Marvel and Magic the Gathering, and like Hasbro is part of the pie, I think they're going to start pressuring the U.S. retailers to not carry stuff, because we saw that like when third parties started getting big. Remember that stuff used to be under Transformers.
Mm-hmm.
When they started doing full figures, Hasbro's like, no, you don't, and so they're like, fine, we moved it up to third party, and they're like, all right, and that's where we've been. But I think that's where we're going to see the squeeze to the point where it's harder to get. But it's a global market. They're just going to, I think, move the needle, but I think it'll shrink third party some. You just go to like Show Z store or something, or eBay sellers like Baba Bobo that will become, and NetCloud that'll become just even larger with what they sell.
See, again, like I feel like that this whole issue is really more of a Western like way of thinking versus Asia way of thinking, and I could be 100% wrong and pulling this completely out of my rear, but if you notice, the ones that Hasbro's went after, it's the ones where they're specifically competing for something that they license. Like the Masterpiece line is really Takara's like thing. Like Hasbro is distributing it in Asia and like in the US or whatever, but like it's really Takara's thing.
Yeah.
And so like they haven't went after any of that kind of stuff. The two items that we've heard rumors of is of course the Zeta one, which was Zeta was dumb to do it at the same time they're doing crowdfunding anyway. And then that we've heard some of the Masterpiece movie figures that a rumor of that, like that none of that's been confirmed. The Zeta one we know has been confirmed when they took their stuff down. But like to me, I feel like it's really more of if Hasbro actually gets more into Masterpiece themselves, I think that you're going to see them going after those figures or those things. And I think that really this kind of fighting it is really more of a Western thought, like the fighting copyright and whatever, whereas I feel like from what I hear in Asia, at least, that it's more of a collaborative thing, and that they try to iterate on each other, like take idea, like they're more willing to kind of share in ideas, and that they're okay with it, assuming that like you don't just straight out copy
Yeah.
the other figure. That if
Oh,
you're
there was
yeah.
I don't know if you watch Pake for Life. He had an interview with the designer of MMC's the all-in-one Bruticus.
Mm-hmm.
That designer, and he's worked for Takara, and I mean he talks about it a little bit, that, and like, and then afterwards, like, he went and got a beer with his old boss or something that he worked with at Takara, and it's like there's no, like, he was like, he's like, he's gonna be mad about something. He was like, but it was fine. But like the engineering teams kind of, the engineers, the individuals, they go wherever over there, and people know about it. It's not as antagonistic as it is here in the States, I think, is kind of the thing. Is over there, like, they're not like super happy about it, it sounded like, but they still wasn't like, fuck you forever.
Right.
It wasn't to that level. It was, and there's definitely like that challenging each other, thing, and doing better and doing better. And the engineer for that said, like, MMC didn't say make an all-in-one figure. He said, I think I can make it all in one. He was challenging himself. And then MMC's like, if you think you can do it, and then now that's like the staple of the line, and they're going to do other combiners and keep that going on, that attempt for it. So
I don't know. I mean, that whole thing is just, it's tough in general, because like I don't think that Hasbro could ever really partner with third parties, just because like all the licensing issues and things like that, to where, like these third parties, they will take some type of car design, and they don't pay for the rights to some Porsche or
so does
whatever
Hasbro.
And has for 35
Ever.
years.
They have. You're
back with
right. You're right. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so the
Takara
Hasbro,
doesn't, though, at least for a while there, for the Masterpiece line, they really wanted those licenses.
Right. And now as they're moving into the cartoon aesthetic, they're nope.
Yeah.
right.
Which, to me really makes us wonder, why haven't they just gone to some popular movie cast already? Why do they stick with the G1 Autobot cars so much? There's tons of things that back when we heard licenses were the holdup, it's like there's a lot of other avenues you could go that have nothing to do with licenses. It's like
Springer, damn it.
I mean, it's,
Well, I mean, even going back to cars that are close but not exactly, if licenses, if we're removing licenses now and we're not really worried about that perfect car aesthetic, where's my Jazz?
Right.
yeah.
No, yeah, there's a ton of figures like that. So from what I hear with that is especially when they were initially doing the Masterpiece car line, is they were actually trying to focus this both at Transformer collectors and like toy car collectors. So they would have, something to where that, that's a big thing, everywhere too, where,
Like
someone
Vinyl Tech and alternators.
like model cars, like there's a lot of collectors of those types of things. And so if you have that accurate car, those car collectors will buy it because they like, hey, it's 100% accurate. It's on my shelf, but then I can do this cool thing where someone comes over and like, here, watch this. I can transform it, and it turns into this robot guy. Like, they don't care if Transformers, but it's a robot car.
Yeah, I actually had a boss at a job like maybe 5 years ago that was really into Mustangs, and so I told him about alternators, Grimlock and Wheeljack, that are that Mustang, and so he went and bought them. He collects them. He's like, oh, that's cool, So
there is a car dealership on the other side of town. I was there once, and in the other office they had these it was kind of like your cases behind you, Rob, and they had those, and a couple of them had model cars, and I happened to notice one had it was an Autobot logo because it was alternators Grimlock, and I go, oh, he's got a Transformer.
Right.
Which is unfortunately like the worst alternator.
Yeah.
Like, those arms are just a nightmare. But
so I asked him, I'm like, is that a Transformer in your case? And he goes, yeah, I've never transformed it. I just wanted it for the car.
But yeah, I mean, so that's the thing is, ultimately, like, the market's just not big enough for the volume that they want to do at the price point they want to do. It's just, the market isn't quite big enough, and so they are trying to market this to average people, not just the crazy people like us.
Well, not anymore. I think that's what you're getting at. Like, that's where it was, but now they're not, because now they're like, you know what, we're just going to full on cartoon. We're going to throw in all the accessories we can think of. We're going to paint it head to toe, and the price is going up to support the line. Now that we're narrowing in more.
Yeah. And I would really be curious to see, with this price increase, are they also like planning on producing less than what they used to? Like, are there projections before that they might have had a run of whatever, and then now it's 50% of what it was, or 60%, whatever, but that they're charging more of a markup in order to make up for the lower run?
Depending on the piece, things do seem to sell out faster, but there are a lot more. My perception of it anyway is there are more people that are out there buying the stuff now. But I don't know. I could be wrong.
So I just wanted to see, did Masterpiece Prime sell out? And at Big Bad, it is currently not in stock, but there's a pre-order. So I'm wondering if they're already gearing up a second run of MP44. To me, that's what that says. But that could be wrong, because I know it was in stock for a while, and now it's not.
I was looking at it, and I think it was in stock. And like you're saying, they might.
It still just amazes me that we have so many people that are willing to plunk down that much money instead of ordering it from Japan. Like, how,
Well, you can't now. Some people missed out.
You can still order it from like Ami Ami or Nippon-San.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, for me, I actually wouldn't mind going with Big Bad Toy Store, because they're only like 3 hours down the road. So it's shipping is just like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's that, and I'm sure there's some people to where they just don't care about saving some money, that they would rather support their local retailers, and so. But yeah, I don't know. So the price in general, though, because I know we've hit on this a little bit, but I know before when the Masterpiece cars, and I don't know, I feel like a little bit like back in my day when bread was 10 cents and gas was
Don't you stop
25, like whatever. But like, I know when the Masterpiece line started out, you could get cars for $65.
For what it's worth, it's over $400 at Ami Ami right now. Just so you know.
But yeah, so back in the day, like, you could have a pretty big, like, beefy collection for not that much more than if you're collecting Chug, and I can get the Prime for $160, the Soundwave for $160, whatever. And some of these other cars, and I can have a heck of a collection for under $1,000. Whereas now, I mean, it's like 2-3 figures, and we're up to $1,000. Like,
so,
that.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So I think that what you're hitting on is the real reason that we're having so many people complain about the price, is that this was a line that started out with one kind of mishmash aesthetic, with good engineering at a certain price point, and they've really rebranded and launched the line, and a lot of people that were into the line are all of a sudden priced out, and a lot of people that preferred that aesthetic, it's now gone away. And I think with not everything has to be for everyone. So it's lines. I mean, that started like a decade ago. It's awesome that third party gives you options. Hasbro has a lot of options with Siege because a lot of people love it. Maybe they should have renamed the line to Ultimate Masterpiece. I don't know, to make people realize that this is something different now. And we had a lot of transitionary figures, but it's something different now. It is not what it was when MP10 was released, and not everything has to be for everyone. I'm over the moon with the current direction of the line, especially when it went quiet for so long before they announced MP44. And I was like, is this line dead? Are they done? This is my favorite line. What's going on here? And I was like, they released Megatron and Sunstreaker, who were amazing, and then nothing. What's going on? It doesn't have to be for everyone. Sorry, guys. You know, I mean, and I get it. A lot of people were priced out of it. If this had started off as if we didn't have anything pre MP44 and all of a sudden this was released, some people would have been like, oh man, that's too pricey. No thanks. But they wouldn't have cared as much because they won't feel like they were in a line that changed and left them behind. No one complains about the price of Solo Chogokin because, you know, from the beginning, it was expensive and it was what it was and people knew and they were either in for it or they weren't, you know, and it's just, this was a transitionary line.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Jack?
Ryan commented, nobody has angrily mentioned that Hasbro still hasn't released Masterpiece Kiss players. That's the one Masterpiece line that can rot in hell.
I mean, for what it's worth, Kiss players and alternators for its time, a lot of us used those as Masterpiece figures. Mm-hmm. You know, because the only thing we had to go with was MPO1, you know, who was a much larger figure, and those alternators are larger figures, you know, so that those kind of actually work together pretty well for what they were.
So I think, you know, it's one thing I want to hit on for myself, and I think that part of the reason that I'm having a tough time with, you know, all of this is that when MPO1 came out, right, like I only had one option for an Optimus Prime. I only had one option for a Megatron, like when that came out or whatever, that, you know, and so I was happy because like, wow, look at this. This is so amazing. Like this is next level, right? Whereas, you know, now when MP44 is coming out, I have, 5 options for a mat. Well, I mean, shoot, even more than that. Like if you talk about not even just talking G1 Optimus Prime, but if you want to throw in all of the high-end collectible Optimus Prime figures that we've gotten over the years, like, I mean, you could probably put 10 to 20 different options, right? And so I almost feel like it's kind of like that there's almost too many choices now for me to where I actually will sit there and nitpick. Like, whereas like if I had one figure, I would be happy with it because I'm like, oh, this is awesome. But then now that I have like 10 figures, I'm like, well, I can see that this one has this flaw, and that one has that flaw, and that one has that flaw. And so then I don't have an absolutely 100% perfect, you know, collectible figure because everything is going to have limits because it's limited by physics and price and, you know, just whatever the things is. So I think that's part of the issue that I'm having is that I almost have too much choice.
I think that goes back to our pre-record that we put out a couple of weeks ago. You know, our Transformers fans spoiled, you know, are we entitled? And I think that's definitely some of it. We've had it so good that, you know, people are demanding things, and it's just like that's not how, you know, completely frivolous purchases work, you know, in a capitalist market for things. You know, it's like, I want the line to stay what it was at the price point it was. And Takara decided we're going to basically rebrand the line and redo it completely to make it a high-end collectible toy. Take it or leave it, you know. And I mean, then again, capitalism, Magic Square and Transform Element popped up and said, okay, we're going to fill that niche and give some people some options. So it's there. And a lot of people are like, you know what? I like MP10 better anyways. All right, cool. Keep it. There's like 18,000 versions of it. It's a gajillion colors. It's been done. You know, knock yourself out, dude. Everybody wins. So,
are we going to see the 400 different decos for MP44? I saw the Fanta Photoshop going on. I think it's a Photoshop. Have you seen that? Yeah. There's an orange MP44 with an oversized Pepsi Convoy trailer, and he has a Fanta logo on his shoulder.
Yeah,
I don't know. Paul might have made it so he can sell it at, you know, I don't know.
I think the short version is yes.
See all that?
Okay. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it'll be a bit. You know, it'll take time. You know, I think there'll be trailerless versions just like there was for MP10, and
yeah, I can see that.
You know, they may cut back on the paint on some of them, and you know, have it just be plastic for some of those releases.
Prime.
Yeah, Nemesis Prime will totally happen.
Yeah.
You know,
totally I guarantee you that's going to happen. So, Well, and the other thing too is I know just in general with that MP44 MP10 when MP10 first came out from Takara, wasn't it like 250 or something like that? I think it was 25,000 yen.
I want to say it was.
It was more expensive, and then it came out at Toys R Us, and I think it was 150 at Toys R Us.
Yeah,
but then like it sold out everywhere. People scalped it, and so it was still costing you like $250 until eventually stock levels caught up, and then you could just buy it on ToysRUs.com or something. But it took a while. But yeah, it was, compared to MP01, that was $100. So it's like but it didn't have the trailer. It had a cardboard trailer. So
yeah.
So I think that is one thing to kind of keep in mind with some of these is that a lot of times if you wait, like you can get it a little bit cheap. Like when they do the reissue, that it may be a little bit cheaper than what the original one was. So I don't know. Do we have any other kind of final thoughts or anything that we haven't, or is there anything that I haven't kind of brought up or we haven't brought up that we want to kind of talk about the current masterpiece trend?
Beast Wars.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Love them. They're also expensive.
They're also expensive, and we are getting all those redecos and fun stuff. We're getting Burning Convoy, which means we're probably going to get a Flash Leo Convoy once Leo Convoy comes out. Leo Convoy is painfully cartoon accurate, and I love it.
That derp face is great.
I'm down. I'm so down. I hope we see more Destrons from the Beast Wars line. I'd love to see Beast Wars 2nd Galvatron. I think that would be fantastic. If that opens the door to a Beast Wars 2nd Masterpiece Megastorm, which is a Generation 2 Megatron, sign me up.
That would be interesting if we actually got our way around to that.
That would be so. I mean, I know it's way down the road. We're talking 2034, but hey, I'll be hopefully alive. I'll buy it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the Beast Wars line that they're doing things that, again, shouldn't be possible. It's, again, that constraint of cartoon accuracy, which, the fact that they're pulling it off is as well as they are is just really, really kind of, mind-blowing. I hope they at least finish out the S1 cast. Like I love that they're dabbling into other things. Keep doing that, but keep bringing us back to that S1 cast, and let's at least fill that out before, they abandon it. Because I don't have high expectations that third party can do it the way Takara is doing it. I know that there's that Xinjiang Transmetal 2 Megatron that looks pretty awesome. But the way they're doing that digital paint on all of them, and that really looks like Rhino's or Mainframe's rendering, is just really awesome.
Yeah, I've been really impressed by that entire Beast Wars line. Like, I am not a Beast Wars fan myself. I just, I don't have the nostalgia for it. But, like, the figures themselves, just, the engineering, the paint, like, I just, like, that digital paint, like you said, that they're using looks incredible. I actually think that they look, on average, better than the G1 masterpieces to me, just because of the way that they're doing that paint.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see who they announce next. I think we just got Black Arachnia and Leo lined up, right? And we don't know anything past that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I know, like, earlier in the comments, some of the viewers were talking about how the Takara just throws stuff at the dartboard as far as, like, when they're doing their character selections. But, I do think that the new direction that they have, right, is I feel like that they are trying to hit different demographics. And I think that they're trying to do it so that, like, you're not overloading one group of people. Because, like, if we got 12 new G1 masterpieces, like, in a year, right? Like, one, like, we wouldn't probably have the money. So you would be, trying to pick and choose, with it. Like, two, I just don't think it would be as much of an event for people when they're getting it. Like, I feel like, again, that 9 months we had to wait for, MP44, that you're spending all this time talking about it and looking at the reveals and all that and just hyping yourself up. And so if you had a new one every single month, I just don't think that it would be as special.
I don't think that's even possible for the size of company Takara is. I mean, I just don't think the factories could produce that many new molds. You know, I don't think they could engineer to the level they want to engineer them that fast to have a new G1 masterpiece every month. I think it takes too long to get a figure ready to go. With Beast Wars as well.
Yeah, but and I think the other thing too is it kind of coincides with the price increase because, you know, again, the fact that we've known about this MP44 and that like we have to wait all this time for him, and then we have to wait all this time for, you know, the Bumblebee, I guess, has been delayed until December and whatnot too, that you know, there's some time for you to kind of save up because they know that, like, yes, there are some collectors that collect everything, but a lot of them that are collecting, you know, the movie masterpiece and the Beast Wars or whatever are not necessarily G1, and so they're kind of hitting different groups, and people can kind of save up so that way, you know, it's like you've got your option. You can either buy a jillion chugs, or you can buy one masterpiece figure.
Yeah,
it gives you that breathing room. Yeah.
So something that applies to both. Or, I mean, I don't know if it applies to movie as much because I'm not as familiar with film, but definitely with Beast Wars and especially G1, we've touched on a bit. But what do people think about the accessories? And, you know, previous ones don't really have a whole lot. They have like a few little things, but then third party started putting in more. So then anything third party, Takara's like, well, we have to put at least that much in there. So they do, you know, and then, you know, brings us to MP44 and it's like, holy God. There are so many accessories. There's so much thought put into them out the wazoo, you know, and obviously that affects price somewhat. I don't think it affects it as much as people think it does. I think they're looked as, from what I've been in the manufacturing world for some other things, like the cost to produce the thing is really nowhere near the price. The price is to make up for your payroll, you know, so it's like we need to hit this target price point. Adding in some doodads doesn't change the price to any notable degree. The markup is like, you know, 50, 70% more than what it actually costs from the manufacturer. But again, you got to pay people's salaries. That's why the price is there.
I think the more accessories you have, the better. Third party has been really great as being free market research for Hasbro and Takara for the better part of a decade, or more than a decade now. I keep forgetting what year it is. And so, yeah, more is better. Bring it on. And third party are still going to add stuff on top of whatever we get officially. So yeah, let's play.
Except for trailers for Prime.
So I think from my perspective, I enjoy more accessories, but I don't enjoy it if there's nowhere to store them. And so that annoys me that, like, in alt mode, I can't put whatever certain guns and all that, because ultimately, if I can't keep all the accessories together, I'm just going to have it in the box. If it's in the box, like, I may mess with it at the beginning, but, like, ultimately, all that's just going to go, you know, in my storage area, unless it can store it. So I do actually think, like, that trailer that they have for MP44, and the way that they did that tray with the accessories, I thought was absolutely fantastic. And I really hope that they can continue, or the vans, I think, where they had the little sled and they had all that stuff with the accessories on there. Like, I think that those are really neat ideas, and I hope that if they're going to continue to include a lot of accessories, I hope that they do solutions like that in order to put it in. But I agree. Like, I feel like the accessories in general are a way that they can create value for the consumer, so that when the thing is $400, they're like, but it comes with all these accessories. So,
I mean, it gives a lot of play pattern as well. And even though, you know, these are collectors, but it adds a lot of play. You spend more time just checking it all out. Because I spent so much time checking this guy out before I even started trying to transform it, because of all the accessories, because I was just exploring them in depth. You know, so just, yeah, it's that perceived value without a lot of cost, which is, you know, that's great for a company. Everyone feels like they win.
I like Ryan in the chat says the best part of MP44's trailer is you can fit so many KISS players in there.
Oh no! Senpai Prime.
So, and then to answer Antoine's question about Hound, we haven't heard if it's getting delayed, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see whether or not the Bumblebee has any kind of impact on Hound. And when is Black Arachnia supposed to come out? I can't remember.
Eventually.
Yeah. So
sometime.
I don't know. I don't think it necessarily has to. Like, it's not like the same line at the factory is doing both of them. Like, we've seen this with other third parties too, where that, say Mastermind Creations that has one figure that's delayed and another one, comes out before that, or comes out at the same time. So we can definitely see that, but they may not want to have two G1s hit at once. So they may delay, one of them, especially if you have, nothing else like left in the pipeline. It might be good to space it out a little bit. So, all right. Any other?
I think we should go around and just get everybody's like final thoughts on the direction of the MP line, condense it up.
Yep.
Like, 30-second blurb.
All right, Rob, why don't you go first?
All right. I love it. I can empathize with people that feel they were priced out of something they were into. But I love the direction. I love the accessories. I love the look. I love the engineering. I love that it's painted. Yeah, it's more expensive, but it definitely makes everything more eventful. It's what they're doing with it hasn't been done before. They're raising the bar. And so I'm happy to be along for the ride. And, I can afford it. So at least right now, knock on wood. Hopefully that doesn't change. But even if I couldn't afford it, I would sacrifice other things that I buy so that I could buy this, because I'm that into it. So full steam ahead. I think it's great.
Peter?
For me, 44 is brilliant. Bumblebee looks like a mess, but I'm going to get him anyway. The Beast Wars stuff, I'm loving it. The paint, the accessories, everything, with the exception of Bumblebee's feet and back, because then Black Arachnia is a bit of a mess too, but for the Beast Wars characters, I can kind of forgive it. But the general direction of the Masterpiece line is something that I'm super into, super excited for, and I will continue to buy them.
Jack?
I'm just going to condense it down. I love it. It's just the fact that there's more toys, despite the sucky thing about it is that they're expensive as all holy hell.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I'm at as well, that I think that I like the cartoon aesthetic slightly more than the old ones. I don't like the fast increase in price. So I think overall I would prefer it to be the way that it was, previously. But I understand that, hey, like not everything's for me. Yeah, so that's kind of why I decided to, kind of get out of it, just because it's like I don't want to restart my Masterpiece line again, and I'm, decided to get off the train at this point, at this stop. So, but I love Siege, and that's part of my thing is that, like, honestly, that's my line, that's my bag right there. So, yeah, so I guess with that, one thing, if you like what we do, consider supporting us on Patreon. It's patreon.com/TFYLP. There's different tiers from $1 a month all the way up to $100 a month if you want to go crazy. And so, the main thing that we're doing with this, of course, I'm sure people have heard about, some of the YouTube stuff going on. But we really just do this to kind of help pay for the server cost, pay for promotion, for all the different assets and stuff like that. So, that's the main thing that we're doing. So, again, patreon.com/TFYLP. And then also, we got a whole slate of shows coming up this week. Again, so we, check out the new TF Talk Weekly show. It's a weekly news show that Paul is doing. So, hopefully we can. There's a couple episodes out already on that. And then we also have, of course, Microcasters, where we do live toy reviews with comments on Facebook. That is 10 o'clock Eastern on Tuesday nights. So come join us for that on the tftalk.net Facebook page. Wednesday nights, we've got Ouch My Wallet, where we go over all of the expensive things that we bought. And that's hosted by Rob. That's at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central on Wednesdays. Fridays, we now have the Cut the Tape show with Rick, which that's a pre-recorded show that he's done where, if you don't know Rick, he's been kind of going through and redoing his basement collection room for the past, 5 years, 3 years, something like that. And so he's finally getting around to opening some of, various figures that he has. So it looks like it's going to be a really fun episode this week where he's going to open up some third party and kind of compare those. As well. So, and then I believe that the TFYLP next week, I think, will be a pre-record. We'll have to confirm that, but I believe because I'm going to actually be out of town. So with that, thank you guys for joining me, and thanks everyone in the chat for all the great comments.
Happy birthday, Jack.
Thank you.
Yes, happy birthday.
Transform and roll out.
Woo!
There we go. On that, see you guys.